Story 1. Like a huge weight was lifted from me. I am now comfortable with myself and have realistic expectations. I no longer care what people think of me. Story 2. Happened a month ago. All things considered, I feel pretty good. I've been thinking back to when I turned 20 and how lost I felt back then. As a teenager, I sometimes wasn't confident I'd ever make it to 30. But here I am. Not only that, things are stable. As I've gotten older, I've learned a lot more about how to be content and take care of myself in life. There's an ease to life at 30 that I didn't have before. So that's pretty cool. Story 3. For some reason, when I was about to turn 30, I was really dreading it and it felt like that was the end. I will be 60 in a couple of years, and I look back on that and wonder what the heck I was thinking. Story 4. Like I woke up from a nightmare and was suddenly old despite having nothing to show for it and no sense of past or future progression. Story 5. Everyone around me acted as if it were the end of the world when they turned 30, especially the other gay men I know. My 30th birthday felt like any other, a day older than the previous one. I had drinks with friends, a nice restaurant lunch with my family, and a lovely restaurant dinner with my partner. We also went to France for a long holiday that year. My 30s have been great. I am approaching 40, but I feel absolutely fine about it. I still feel the same as I did in my 20s, but with more experience, self-confidence, and a better income. Story 6. I'm a 75-year-old male. As I recall, I was on the USS Enterprise at sea on deployment as a career sailor when one of my shipmates was reading a letter from his wife, who knew me. He looked up and said something like, "Hey, Gail says to tell you happy birthday. Do you have a birthday coming up?" I had to think about it and then replied, "Yeah, last week. I forgot all about it." Big deal. Or words to the same effect. Because it was an absolutely meaningless number to me. Story 7. I loved my 30s. They were the absolute best time. Lots of traveling, hanging out with friends, and going to parties. Story 8. I did not feel any different until I randomly developed bursitis, and my knees started to hurt constantly. Story 9. I didn't care much about getting older because it is a blessing to live. However, I was upset and disappointed that my life had not turned out the way I would have liked despite making good life decisions. Story 10. I am not quite there yet, but my wife was extremely depressed about it for a while. Losing your youth can be a very emotional experience for some people. Story 11. Did not hate it. Being in your 20s has an air of naivety due to inexperience. My actions are no longer mistakes. They are failures. I prefer certainty. Story 12. Broken. My closest friend just made it clear I did not matter to her. Even though she had previously supported me through stressful times and I had supported her. She just stopped communicating with me and started making me feel like I was lying and that I was the problem. Then my coworkers wished me a happy birthday, and I started to work on rebuilding a friend group. Story 13. I was a bit anxious about turning 30. I will be 42 later this month. My 30s were actually pretty good. Career change, bought my house, got married to my partner of 10 years. My 40s have had a rough start, but I did not freak out about turning 40 like I did when I turned 30. Story 14. When a car has 29,999 miles and turns over to 30,000, it still runs the same. It is the same when a person goes from 29 to 30 or any decade of life for that matter. Story 15. I was in a dead-end job. I didn't have a girlfriend and couldn't afford to insure my car, so I had to sell it. I took a long walk, and at the end of it, I said, "Get over yourself. Don't be miserable." A year later, I was in the job that kickstarted my career, making better money. I met my first wife at that job a few years later. My 40th birthday was a surprise party where over 30 friends and work colleagues were waiting for me as I carried my 1-year-old son into the house I owned. Story 16. Did not really even notice, to be honest. That was a very important year for me, for long story reasons, but being 30 had nothing to do with it. Story 17. I did not have an existential moment about my age until I turned 35. When I turned 30, I felt like I had arrived, as silly as that sounds. I felt that being in my 30s was simply more fitting for me, like I was finally the age I had always felt. Story 18. Really good. I was ready to feel like the youngest person in their 30s rather than the oldest person in their 20s. I also basically overnight gave myself more permission to just do whatever I wanted and not care about what other people thought. I feel a lot of freedom when I go to events now, which is rare because I'm tired and was always a bit of a grandma. I know I'm not going to be one of the cooler, hipper people there, so I feel totally removed from the competition, which is great. Being anti-age rules. I'm 35 now. Story 19. 30 was okay. But my 40, absolutely. I petted wolves and partied with my friends until 3 a.m. that week. But all that fun aside, when I turned 40, I stopped caring about strangers' opinions of me. It gave me so much peace. Now I am near 50. Life is sweet. My 50s are looking very promising. Story 20. Society has made it seem like your 30s are when your life is over, but they are definitely not. It is all about perception. Being positive and taking care of yourself will always make you feel and look young. Plus, you have more years ahead of you than behind you at 30. Seriously, you are just a kid. Story 21. Many people asked me this question when I turned 30, and it never felt like much. It still does not, nearly a decade later. Change is gradual, and I thought I would become a serious adult at some point, but instead, I am just still me. Story 22. 30 kind of kicked my butt. I was late to work every day that week by 5 to 10 minutes. I felt a sense of doom pervading all parts of my life. I suddenly felt old. Fast forward a couple of decades. I am a cancer survivor and appreciate every single birthday I get to see. 30 was a blip on the radar of my life. Story 23. It's just a number. Your life does not magically change just because you have reached a new set of tens in how many years old you are. I did not feel any different. Story 24. Thought I'd never get hit on again. Got hit on more. A girl told me she won't date anyone under 30. She was 24 or 25. Story 25. Great. I am coming up on the end of my 30s, and the decade was the best one yet. You tend to find your stride in your career somewhere in there, so you can stop being broke and do some fun stuff in your free time, like travel or go to nice restaurants. Story 26. Sadly, I turned 30 in 2020, right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. It kind of robbed me of the experience of turning 30. I wanted to do something special for my 30th birthday, so I never really felt like I turned 30. But so far, my 30s have been much better than my 20s. I am 34 now. Story 27. Turned 34 months ago. Felt a bit upset that I am no longer in my 20s and felt like I wasted my best years. Story 28. It's a strange in-between age. I no longer feel like a naive young adult, but I also feel too young to be middle-aged. Arthritis is starting to develop early. Thankfully, it is just in my foot, which is easy to manage. Story 29. Nothing changed other than the number of orbits around the sun. Even 50 did not feel like much of a milestone. Story 30. I was actually pretty stressed about it, but then the day went by and I realized my life was the same as it was the day before. Leading up to the milestone, you cannot help but imagine everything is going to be immediately different somehow. But then that just does not happen. Story 31. Terrified of the responsible, aspiring, humbled, and confident person I had to and did become. I knew my mistakes had to cease, lest I have another mental episode that I do not come back from. Here we are a year later, rebranded and ready to finally engage with life the way I always wished I had from the start. Seemingly lackluster in former me's opinion, but stability across the board really is where it is at. Story 32. In many ways, it has been better than my 20s, as others have said. In other ways, I wish I had the mindset I have now but with the body of my 22-year-old self. Overall, the positives outweigh the negatives. Mentally and emotionally, I am the healthiest I have ever been. Physically, I am becoming healthier than I was during most of my 20s. After the early 20s, the rest of the years were difficult. I am 32 now. Story 33. Great. I feel like you peak physically in your 30s and hopefully have some learned perspective to complement that peak. Story 34. I felt empty turning 30, like it could not get any worse. It took a lot of work, but I have taken control of my life and feel far better than before. Story 35. Love being in my 30s. I am now a senior nurse, happily married, and a first-time mother. I cannot complain. More importantly, I am much more sure of myself. I do not tolerate nonsense. I do what makes me happy. Cheers to the 30s. I cannot wait for the 40s. Story 36. Fine. 25 was tough for me because I was still in college and all my friends were settling down and getting married. My 30s were when I really stopped caring what people thought about me and started focusing more on myself. I got my finances together. I got married when I was 30. Things have been good. I am 38 now. I do not have all the answers, but my 30s have been the best years so far. Better friendships, better relationships, a better understanding of who I am and what I will and will not tolerate, and focusing more on learning my own capabilities. Story 37. Turning 30 was solid. Trust me, as an older millennial, make sure to take care of your body, mind, and soul now. Turning 30 was great. Most of my 30s were quite enjoyable. I made solid progress in my career and personal life. I still had a few great friends to spend time with. I found my love for hiking and got in really decent shape. I was winning my lifelong battle with various mental health issues. My late 30s were not so much. I lost my job during COVID-19, my marriage completely fell apart, and I lost my enjoyment of life. Turning 40 was a little rough for me. I still didn't have any passion for life. I just turned 42, and things look better from the outside. I got my job back, but better. I managed to keep my house in the divorce. I have a couple of solid friends who love me and have helped me with my demons. I have been hiking again. Still no passion yet, but I do get to the mountains every few weeks. So I have that going for me, which is nice. Dating has certainly been an experience, but that is a whole other story. Story 38. It was strange for me. My father died when he was 29, so turning 30 was an awkward milestone. My mother passed away when she was 36, which made turning 37 another uncomfortable feeling. When I turned 40 last year, my older stepsister texted me and said, "Welcome to the 4th floor. You made it." Suddenly, 40 did not feel old. Story 39. I just turned 40. Sad but optimistic. My 30s were great like my 20s, but with money and more confidence. Story 40. Had one incredible session for my birthday and celebrated the last decade in style. I remember it like it was yesterday. I am 56. One of my coworkers walked past me the following Monday and said, "Oh well, your 20s are just a memory now." Yeah. Story 41. I was going through heavy feelings from my only big breakup. A day before, I found out I was COVID-19 positive in 2021 before vaccines were available, and it was winter. I have worked out in the middle of the ocean and in faraway countries, but I have never felt more isolated and defeated. I was also unemployed and felt like I had really let my younger self down. This was not how I imagined my 30s would start. Story 42. It did not bother me. I went through the crap I am getting older phase at 28, when it hit me that I was closer to 30 than my mid-20s. However, by the time I turned 30, I realized I did not feel any different and do not feel negative about getting older. Story 43. Well, I was in college, working a barely above minimum wage job, no children yet, still smoking, still married. So basically, I was still in my early 20s. I would say it was just like 20, but I turned 20 in boot camp and have no recollection of how it felt. 21, I only remember a spinning mattress. The other years are pretty much a blur since I am 55 now. Since I am Generation X, I felt like I was 30 when I was 15. I also felt like 30 at 50. I have been 30 for 40 years. I have gotten pretty good at it. Story 44. Great. I finally figured myself out and what I want in life. My 30s have been my favorite decade so far. Story 45. I felt my age when I turned 27. I got a hamstring injury while playing softball. I did not really feel any different at 30. Story 46. I felt like garbage. I had nothing back then and decided it was time to relieve the world of my existence. Story 47. I felt old. As soon as I turned 30, it seemed like I immediately started noticing wrinkles and sunspots all over my skin. Story 48. Honestly, for me, there was no difference. I am still an obese, depressed, suicidal, lonely person like I was in my 20s. Now I am just waiting for a heart attack to end my life. Story 49. Turning 30 in 3 months. I have never been happier. You stop having unrealistic expectations by then if you do not have your head too far up your own ass. Everyone younger and older feels special and important, whereas when I was younger, only other young people mattered to me. For example, if I had a crush on someone, everyone else would fade into the background. I had almost no sense of presence and was overly concerned with what everyone else thought of me. Story 50. I was always cute in my teens and 20s, but I didn't become attractive until my 30s. People who haven't seen me since my early or mid-20s have run into me, now at 32 years old, and they say, "Wow, what happened?" I respond, "I seriously don't know." Second, puberty. Story 51. Not much has changed. Why would I feel different at 30 than I did at 29? Internally, I still feel like I am 21 sometimes, and my body aches as if I am 46. Story 52. I was so excited to turn 30. Felt really empowering to be a 30-year-old woman. I have truly entered my I do not give a care era. Story 53. The same as when I was 29 years and 364 days old. It's not like the night before I went to bed looking young and the next morning I woke up gray-haired and wrinkled. But if I compare to my early 20s, I think things changed drastically. When I turned 20, I had just lost my mother earlier that year and my grandmother the day after. Her heart literally broke when she lost her daughter. A few months into my 20s, my boyfriend of 3 years broke up with me because I wasn't the same girl I used to be, and he thought grief would only last about a month. The same day he broke up with me, misery came in twofold. A friend died in a fire at age 18, so my early 20s were the heaviest years in my life, dealing with so much emotional pain, feeling lost, trying to navigate the world as an adult, and carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. My 30s are, emotionally speaking, 1,000 times better, just not physically. When I was 30, I got coronavirus disease 2019. I am almost 35 and feel physically like a 75-year-old on the inside. You don't see it on the outside, but coronavirus disease 2019 permanently damaged me. Story 54. I went beyond the point where people found me attractive. It made me depressed for a year. In my culture, it is uncommon to get married in your 30s, largely due to the superficial belief that you have lost your attractiveness to others, and if they marry you, it is mostly out of pity or because you are their second choice. I have made peace with that. At least I get to give that unloved affection to my cats. Story 55. Felt fine. When I woke up on my 35th birthday, I realized I was closer to 50 than 20, but that bothered me for about 20 minutes. Then I just continued with my day. Story 56. I'm scared. I turned 30 in September. I am currently my dad's age when I was born, and that is wild to me to think about. My friends are getting married and having children. My brother is about to propose to his girlfriend in August. I'm worried I'm simply falling behind. I have friends and my hobbies and things to make life meaningful, but no substantial romantic relationship or family of my own yet. I'm worried that it's always going to be this way, and I'm missing my chance to start. Am I even supposed to start? There's so much I want to do, and settling down with that much responsibility worries me. I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish everything I hope to. I'm going to have to cut some things out. Story 57. Was happy. I'm 31 now. I had been hating the idea of turning 30 since I was 19, but honestly it's better. Story 58. Relieved. There is so much more peace on this side. We do not have it all figured out yet either, but we are relaxed, at peace, and do not care about many things, especially those that disturb our peace. Story 59. I was going through a difficult time. I was getting divorced and lost my house to my ex, despite her never paying a bill or contributing to the mortgage. I moved back home with my mother. I have one friend in the area whom I see maybe once a month if I am lucky. I spend most of my time working. I do not really feel like the man I was in my 20s when I was in the military, making progress by getting married and buying a house. It seems I have taken several steps back. I am feeling somewhat depressed, to be honest. My 30s did not start well. Story 60. I turned 30 this year. It didn't feel any different than being 29. It was just another day for me. I feel much more confident and sure of who I am going into my 30s compared to my 20s. I still don't really know what I want to do with my life, but I have a stable job that I enjoy, and I'm fine doing that until I figure out how to take the first steps down the path I want to follow. My 30s seem like they will be a lot like my 20s, except I won't be broke all the time, and I am more confident with more knowledge to navigate life. Story 61. Overwhelmed by all the people asking me, "So how does it feel to be a man now? I am not even married yet." Story 62. Had a minor midlife crisis, but my job was going very well. I was surrounded by great friends and living in a fantastic place. It was too hard to accept not being in my 20s, but then I quickly got over it and realized I was generally a much better person in this decade of my life. Now I am in my early 40s and feel even better. Story 63. I had just started dating someone and was fully committed to that relationship, so I hardly even acknowledged the birthday. Story 64. Scored a lottery permit for Half Dome on my exact birthday. Summiting my 20s and Half Dome at the same time was an amazing feeling. Story 65. My 20s felt like the tail end of a prison sentence. My 30s were when many of the best things began in my life. 33, I met my soulmate. We have been married 15 years, had children, started my first successful business, and much more. The 30s were amazing. Story 66. Surprised. I got a surprise birthday party. I am a man who does not celebrate birthdays. It did not change anything. As for aging, I have little to no trust in people. Story 67. On the day before my 30th birthday, I had a sudden realization that it was the last day of my 20s. Other than that, it feels much the same. Story 68. Life is pretty good in your 30s. All those injuries you just ignored in your 20s definitely start coming back to haunt you a bit though. Story 69. Felt nothing significant at 30 and also 40. Almost 50 now, that is the big one for me. My energy and recovery declined in my mid-40s, which I had not experienced until then. My vision worsened around the same time gradually over the course of months, so bifocals are necessary now. The feelings I had turning 30 were trivial in retrospect and surface level. Story 70. I just turned 60, and I honestly cannot remember feeling anything special when turning any age. I have not celebrated a birthday since I was 18. I was allowed to drink when the legal drinking age changed to 21. Other than the expected wear and tear, it is all in your head. Story 71. I did not really feel much about it. I still feel younger than I really am. You know what I mean? I am 43 or 44, but I still think I am 22. Story 72. All I am going to say is that if my 30s are going to be somehow even worse than my 20s were, I will harm myself. Story 73. I went blind 2 months before turning 30. It was a great way to end my 20s. My 30s have been spent trying to build a company from the ground up. I have enjoyed it a lot. The only negative is that my back aches sometimes after I have been bent over my Lego city for a while. Then again, I am single with no children and no plans for that. So my life is simple and easy. Story 74. Not a lot, no major difference. 30 to 40 years old? Oh boy, it is challenging as your body starts to slowly decline. Story 75. I feel like I am aging into my personality. The older I get, the more myself I feel. However, I noticed that around age 29 or 30, I became slower in both body and mind. I need glasses now. I experience a lot of pain when I go skiing. My brain feels tired for no reason. I wish I could survive on a 4-day workweek because by day 5, I am just sleepy. These are problems I never really complained about before. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.